Good evening, welcome back to my channel. My name is Julie, and tonight's video we are going to continue our read on the Way of the Warrior. Last night we read about unwrapping power, and we read about choosing the front line. So we talked a lot about King David, and we talked about David as the shepherd as well. We talked about unwrapping power, and I did, of course, highlight some of my favorite lines from the read. So going back to unwrapping power, I had to laugh because I pronounced this word wrong. I was using sumare. I think I said sumare. It's a samurai. I just noticed that tonight when I was reading this. I was like, I was saying that wrong. But I highlighted that a samurai and deacon have the same core meaning. They both mean servant. I did not know that. Also, true humility can be experienced only when we have come to know our power and use it for the good of others and not for ourselves. And let's see. If the God who created the entire universe dwells in your heart, how could you ever consider yourself powerless? That was a good one. And Jesus once explained, apart from the Father, I can do nothing. So true. I dare say no master has ever chosen to serve his disciples like Jesus. It seemed that nothing was beneath Jesus, no act of service too low or common. And how strange that this would be the way of God. Unless I wash you, unless you let me serve you, you will never know the full measure of my love for you. And then going into choosing the front line, talking about David. David had one posture, servanthood. And David made being a shepherd look like a lot like being a warrior. As a shepherd, he learned the skills that made him a warrior. No warrior has ever chosen agility above protection, like David has, or did. And servanthood is not a stage of life. It is a posture of the heart. So those were just some key reads from yesterday that stood out to me. So tonight, we're going to finish Code 3, Chapter 3. We're going to finish it. And tonight we're going to read about hidden ambition. And we're also going to read about playing to win, play to win. So without further ado, here I go. When I was talking to Shane, the young man from church, I immediately began to think of the surgeon who saved my life when I was fighting cancer. In more than 6 hours of surgery, Dr. Khalili carefully and skillfully removed each cancer cell while protecting every healthy organ, assuring me the highest quality of life after the surgery was done. I told Shane, I have a theory. I think Dr. Khalili is very competitive. I think he hates to lose. I don't mean he is competitive against other surgeons. I mean he is competitive against death, against cancer, against losing a patient. Now you have to understand that Dr. Khalili is a fascinating individual, kind, compassionate, thoughtful, yet stoic. He would be the perfect poker player, as you just cannot read his face. He doesn't show you any unexpected emotions. He is very reserved and under control. This, by the way, is exactly how I want my surgeon to be. A part of the follow-up after beating cancer is continuing a battery of tests for up to 2 years until you've been given a clean bill of health. So I knew I would see Dr. Khalili again. After my next visit, and hearing the good news that I was cancer-free, I decided to see if he would allow me to ask him a personal question. While we were standing in the hallway right before I was about to leave, I paused and said, Dr. Khalili, I have a question I want to ask you. He very graciously responded, what is that? I said, I was talking to this young man named Shane who was asking me if it was wrong to be competitive, and I told him about you. I told him I have a theory about you, and I think that you are very competitive. In fact, I told him that I think you are so competitive that you hate to lose. and that when you lose, you have trouble sleeping at night because it bothers you so much. Then I paused to see what kind of response my thought solicited. At first, there was nothing. He just looked at me with those very calm and stoic eyes, and for a second I thought I might be completely wrong, and then I saw it. The muscles on his face gave way to a deeper emotion. He began to smile. Not just with his mouth, but also with his eyes, almost as if he had reverted to being 10 years old again and had found out about a secret he had kept so well. He responded, I am so competitive, and I hate to lose. It was a beautiful moment. I looked at him and I said, thank you for being competitive. Thank you for fighting against cancer, and thank you for refusing to lose me. I can't even imagine having a surgeon who wasn't competitive, who was okay with losing more patients than they saved. I would never want a surgeon who was not driven to pursue greatness. Whoever holds the tools that cut into my body needs to have embraced the disciplines, not disciples. Embrace the disciplines of deliberate practice and personal sacrifice. Greatness is never found, it is gained. Greatness never comes easy, it's always the outcome of great discipline and hard work. If you're comfortable with where you are, if you're complacent, you will never discover the greatness that lies within. Complacency is like pouring water on coals. It is so important not to misunderstand the words of Jesus. Remember, he never said, don't be great. In fact, his invitation was for only those who aspire to greatness. Whoever wants to become great among you, you must be your servant. You will never know the power of servanthood until you know the fire of greatness. Let no one tell you that ambition is not a virtue. Yes, Paul says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interests of others. But this is the key. It's in humility that we place ourselves above ourselves. We place others above ourselves. This must be our ambition. The truth is, a few of us see ambition as a virtue. We quietly think it's okay to be ambitious, but not too ambitious. Too much ambition will corrupt us. But we never think that way about love. We never think, be careful not to love too much. You need to hold on to a little bit of hate. We never think about forgiveness. Be careful to not forgive too much. You need to hold on to a little bit of bitterness. Or about integrity. Be careful to not have too much integrity. You need to keep a little bit of corruption. But we understand virtues like love and forgiveness and integrity to be of such intrinsic value that can't possibly pursue them too much. The warrior understands that ambition is a virtue equal to compassion or kindness or even humility. We are to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. But without ambition, we will find ourselves doing nothing and calling it humility. What we must do is bring the two universes of ambition and humility together, since they were never intended to exist separately. We have a universe of thought around the concept of servanthood. When we think of servanthood, we attach words such as humility, compassion, sacrifice, and selflessness. These are the qualities by which we most readily understand Jesus to be defined. The other universe consists of words related to ego and arrogance, and attached to the narrative are words such as pride, selfishness, ambition, competition, and even greatness. Then, these would be understood as being contrary to the way of Jesus. The warrior understands these words must be brought together. Ambition, competition, and greatness can, and in fact must, exist in the same universe as humility, selflessness, and servanthood. Greatness cannot be achieved without sacrifice, and true servanthood is not the outcome of subservience, but of passion. You can choose both humility and ambition. You can choose both competitiveness and selflessness. You can choose both greatness and servanthood. The truth that Jesus is trying to drive us to is that when we are brought together, we see ourselves best and most fully. In Buddhism, the ultimate end is the elimination of all desire. In the way of Jesus, our highest expression of being human is a life consumed with passion. Even after all these years, I still love playing basketball. I played once with men my age, and I don't think I'll ever do it again. They were so old, so fragile, and so slow. It was disturbing to realize that they were my peers. I loved playing against young men. It keeps me young, and most days I have the pleasure of winning more than I lose. But on one particular day, I lost every single game. We had an odd number of players, and that meant that when I lost, I had to sit. So I was doing a lot of losing and sitting that day. But after about an hour of repeated and relentless humiliation, I went and sat down in a hallway to gather my thoughts, and I asked God why he was no longer with me. Don't we all do that? I do that. God, why are you no longer with me right now? I had a day like that today. I couldn't feel God. I felt like he was so far away. And I tell you, we are nothing without God. And when we feel his distance, we long for him. Those are just my little words. But yeah, he asked God why he was no longer with him. A short time went by when my son Erwin walked down this hallway, and as he passed me, he said, pouting. That did not sit well in my soul. When he came back the other way, after going to the locker room, he said, "Still sitting here? Looks like you're pouting." I love my son, but he was really irritating in that moment. I responded, "I am not pouting. I'm just gathering my thoughts, getting myself ready to play again." As he walked back onto the court, since he had won again, he shouted back, "Still looks like you're pouting." So I got up, walked to the other court, grabbed a basketball, and began shooting to try to regain my stroke. As I stood there shooting by myself, I was totally unaware about how much time had passed. The game on the other side of the court had ended, and my son walked over and said, "Hey, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." "It doesn't seem like you're okay." "I'm fine, Aaron. Stop asking me." He said, "Well, Dad, it's your game, and you don't even seem okay." I said, "Son, I know I have hidden this well all your life, but I really am competitive, and I hate to lose." I'll never forget that moment. I was being so transparent. I was allowing my son to see the darkness of my own soul. And he responded without hesitation, "Dad, you never hit it well. Everyone knows you're competitive, and everyone knows you hate to lose." Then the thought hit me. I'd spent nearly 60 years trying to hide how competitive I was, and it didn't work anyway, so why didn't I just own it? I am competitive. I want to be the best. I want to pursue excellence every day of my life. I want to pay that price that greatness demands of me. I couldn't care less about fame, but I will live my life for greatness, and Jesus tells me how, by being the servant of all. This is the way of the warrior. The warrior is a servant, and that is their greatness. So how will this play out in your own life? What is your field of play? Where have you been called to serve and aspire to greatness? My journey as a communicator began among the urban poor. Every week I would preach to small crowds, whether at home, homeless shelters, during the week, or in the small house we would turn into a church every Sunday morning. The room was full of the poorest of the poor. Each seat was filled by former drug addicts or prostitutes or those struggling with an endless number of addictions. And when I say full, there were never more than 40 or 50 people crammed into that house that we called church. I remember praying even then, "God, these people never have the best of anything. Could you help me give them the very best on Sundays?" I aspired to be a great communicator, not because I ever imagined myself preaching to large crowds or dared to believe anyone would ever read a book with my name on it. Well, hello, we're doing that right now, Erwin. But because I just felt that those people deserve the best, and that drove me to aspire to be the best. I don't know what your calling is. You may be a teacher or an architect or a doctor or a carpenter, but if you choose the way of the warrior, living a life of service, it will demand of you the best you have. You may not need to be great, but the world needs your greatness. Whatever God has placed within you that could ever be described as great was never meant for you anyway. It's a stewardship that has been given to you. Greatness never belongs to the one who carries it. It belongs to the world that needs it. Just think how your life would look if you decided greatness was your standard of your life as a parent, as a spouse, or as an employer or an employee. For too long we have allowed apathy and masquerade itself as humility. For too long we have allowed apathy, am I saying that word right? Apathy, to masquerade itself as humility. There is nothing humble about living apathetic lives. In the same way, we cannot live lives of passion without unlocking our greatness. Passion is the fuel of greatness, and love is the fuel of passion. When we love someone or something, we give them all of us. This is the elegant interconnection between servanthood and greatness. It is love that drives us to serve, and love that drives us to greatness. This is why the two cannot be mutually exclusive. In the end, the one who serves is the one who is great, and they are the one who loves most profoundly. And that completes Code 3. And in our next video, we're going to read about the warrior frees their mind. The warrior frees their mind. We're going to read about the space between the rain. The warrior frees their mind. The space between the rain. I always like to look ahead. I'm always too curious. Okay, I won't do that. So I hope you're enjoying this book. And until the next video, let's apply this to our lives. Let's think about what we're reading and hearing in these words of Erwin. And I think he's a brilliant writer. He's really, I have to tell you, God is speaking to me through this book. Because last night in my prayer, I had tears because I've never known what I was put on this earth for. I remember in high school, which I think is ridiculous, in like 11th and 12th grade, you are supposed to know what you're going to do with the rest of your life because you have to start picking your college. You have to start picking your major. And it's like, how are we supposed to know as children what we're going to do with the rest of our lives? It's like they force it upon us so quickly at such a young age. But some of my friends, they just knew. Like a lot of my girlfriends, they went into nursing, and others did other things. It's like they just knew. And I just didn't know. And I went through my whole adult life never having a certain passion for any type of career. The longest career I've ever had was in banking. I loved being a bank teller. And but I didn't think about being a bank teller in 11th and 12th grade. That wasn't what I was feeling like I was put on this earth to do. And when I left banking, it was kind of just random jobs here and there because I don't have a degree. I went to college. I didn't finish college. I didn't even finish one semester of college because I had just lost my mom, and my mind was not on school. And so I dropped out of college and I never went back. Because life goes on and things happen and you just can't always go back to school. And so all my life I just never knew what I was meant to do. I do know one thing. I love being a mom and I love being a homemaker. I love taking care of the home. I love folding the laundry. I love cooking the meals, even though my husband likes to cook the most. He's he loves to cook, so I just let him. But every once in a while I'll do some cooking, but especially now in the travel trailer, we aren't using an oven, so once we move, I cannot wait to have an actual kitchen again so I can start cooking more. But that is the one thing that I always thought to myself that I would love to be, is just, you know, not just, but to be a mother and a homemaker and a good wife. And that's what I feel the most passionate about. And it seems like that goal of mine has got so many cracks in it and has been broken. There's things I haven't even told you about my previous marriage and how that divorce went down, and it was just terrible. And it just seemed like my dreams of being a mother and all of that just were shattered. I mean, I'm still a mother and I always will be. It's just things have not turned out the way I thought they would. And so I was crying out to the Lord last night, and I was just telling him, like, it's very frustrating not knowing what my purpose down here is. When it seems like everyone around me is hustling and bustling and doing their thing. It's like they just know what they're doing all the time. And like my therapist said, she goes, "You'd be surprised. Most people don't know what they're doing. They just act like they do." And I'm like, well, they're pretty darn good actors, because it seems like they do. But reading this book tonight, Erwin was explaining to us about finding our, how did he word it? There was a part in here that I almost got tears in my eyes. I'll have to highlight it and talk to you about it the next video, because I can't find it now. Oh, it says, "I don't know what your calling is. You may be a teacher or an architect or doctor or carpenter, but if you choose the way of the warrior, living a life of service, it will demand of you the best you have." So when he says, "I don't know what your calling is," I felt like saying, I don't know what my calling is either, and I'm 47 years old. And so I feel like a lot of times I let the Lord down because it's like I missed the memo. And I asked him last night to show me what it is that he put me on this earth for. Is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that I'm not seeing? Is there something that time is just wasting away when I could be doing this one certain thing and I'm not doing it right now, or I haven't been doing it because I just don't know what it is, if that makes any sense. I've spent a lot of my life grieving. I've spent a lot of my life just battling hardship and challenges. So it's like, you know, anyway, I won't keep you. I'm at 23 minutes now. So I will let you go, and stay tuned for our next book read. And I will tell you this, I am going to start a book club, and it's going to be the Erwin book club. This man right here, because he has other books, and I'm going to go to Barnes & Noble, and I am going to purchase one of his other books, and that's going to be our next read after this one. So I guess I'm starting a book club along on this channel. So at first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to call it a book club because I may only read one book. Well, I am now calling it a book club. So anyway, I'm just winging it as I go. I don't really know what I'm doing. I know a lot of these YouTubers, they have it all put together on their channels. Like they have everything's like planned out and edited and scripted, and that's not me. I'm just, what you see is what you get. I'm learning as I go. All I know is I just wanted to start this channel and share my life and share the Bible and just maybe find my tribe. Just like Erwin says, the warrior doesn't need a crowd. The warrior needs a tribe. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Love you.